So in this note sheet, we look at translating expressions. And the questions that we focus on are, what is a numerical expression? What is an algebraic expression? How can I represent an expression using numbers and variables, words, or pictures? So let's start with the basics, right? What is an expression? An expression is a math phrase. It does not have an equal sign, so we are not going to see any of those in this expressions unit. A numerical expression is just made up of numbers. So that could be something as easy as 3 plus 7, or as complicated as 3 squared times 7 times 4 plus 8. That is a numerical expression because it is just made up of numbers. A variable expression, excuse my typo, a variable expression has both numbers and variables. Variables are just the letters that we use in math, like A, or X, or B, or M, or any other letter. So examples of that, instead of 3 plus 7, you could have 3x plus 7, where x is that variable, making it a variable expression. There could be more than one. You could have 4y minus 5m. And in this example, you have two variables. Since they have letters in them, that makes them a variable expression or an algebraic expression. What we're going to look at in this note sheet is how we can take an expression written in numbers and letters and turn it into a sentence. Or how can we take a sentence and turn it into an expression with numbers and letters. So what I did for you down here in this box is I took the words that you might see and I divided them into the operations. What I mean by that is when you see these words used, it's talking about our addition symbol. Words like plus, more than, increased by, and sum all mean that they are using the addition symbol. When we use our subtraction symbol, they might use words like minus, less than, difference, or decreased by. I'm going to put a star by less than, and we're going to move to the side and talk about less than, because it's tricky. If I say 6 less than, some might think that that means that it's 6 minus x, or 6 minus 3. It's actually not. Less than works backwards. Less than would mean that you'd start with your other number and then have minus 6. So this is 6 less than. See how it works backwards? Don't let that trick you. Moving over here, when we see division, right, that means we are using our division symbol. But a lot of times when we're going to be using division, we're going to use that fraction bar where we have a number or a letter on the top and bottom. But divided by and quotient are all words that we use for that division. And last but not least, we have multiplication. We're going to be using a little dot for multiplication. We're not going to use this guy for multiplication anymore, since that also is a letter. Words for multiplication could be times or product. You might also see the word per. If someone makes $10 per hour, you would multiply 10 times the number of hours they worked. You might also see words like twice or triple. And these are both two really special words that mean a particular type of multiplication. Twice just means 2 times. and triple means 3 times. So those are what those words use. Last but not least, when you see the phrase a number, that's used to show that there is a variable. So again, that's when you see X or A or B or P or whatever letter they're choosing to use. So here's some examples of this. You might read this as 10x minus 8, which isn't wrong, but there's also a couple pieces that are missing. This sentence over here is equal to this. And if we look at what it says 8 less than the product is multiplication, a number, that's where X is, and 10. So if you see 8 less than, or the minus 8, and this times x 10 looks a little funky, but that is where the 10x comes from. And we'll look at some examples here in a few seconds, and hopefully we clear that up. This one, though, this is the tricky one. Because of these parentheses, it's really important that we look at how this is written. Because this says 6 times the sum of a number and 3. And what's important is this, times the sum of. What that means is we're not doing 6 times x. We're not doing 6 times 3. We're doing 6 times the sum of. The sum of means that we need to put parentheses around that sum, and that's what's getting multiplied by 6. So like in the order of operations where we would have grouping, this is our math first, we need to know what the sum is before we can multiply by 6. So like I said, you're going to see some examples on the back, and I hope that that might be a little easier to understand. So we're going to flip this over. And up at the top, we're going to look at these. So what I do when I read these is I read it once, and then I read it a second time, and I underline the keywords, and I write down the symbol that they're representing. So for the first one, it says the quotient of a number and 3 decreased by 5. Okay? The quotient, so I'm dividing, of a number, I'm going to use x and 3, decreased by is minus 5. Divided x3 minus 5. Okay, well I know decreased by 5. I know I'm going to have minus 5. And then the quotient of a number and 3 also means x divided by 3. And we're going to show that like a fraction, x divided by 3. And that's our expression for that. For the next one, this says 4 times the difference of a number and 3. Okay, so I have 4 times the difference of a number and 3. If I look, here's that times the difference of again. So it's not 4 times x or 4 times 3. It's 4 times the difference, which means I'm going to have the difference of a number and 3 inside my parentheses, and I'm multiplying that by 4. So see how it's times the difference of? It's not times a number or times 3. It's times the difference. So we put the difference in parentheses so we can times it by 4. This one says 3 less than, this should say, sorry, twice a number. Okay, so 3 less than, twice means 2 times, and then a number. So like 2 times x. if you remember, we talked about less than, right? We talked about how that was tricky. So since it's 3 less than, and less than works a little backwards, I know it's going to be minus 3. But now I have twice a number, or 2 times x. And over here I'm going to show you. When we have 2 times x like that, mathematicians are really lazy. And we don't like to write anything extra. So what happens is, rather than writing 2 times x with the multiplication symbol, we just smush those together to be 2x. So that's going to be 2x minus 3. 3 less than, twice a number. And here we have our last one. The sum of a number and 6 divided by 4. Okay, this comma here is really important. It's telling us that the sum of a number and 6 is getting divided by 4. The sum of a number and 6 divided by 4. It's not 6 divided by 4. It's the sum of a number and 6. So if you're already ahead of me, you guessed it. X plus 6 is going to be in parentheses. And this whole thing is getting divided by 4. The sum of a number and 6 divided by 4. If these are still really hard for you to understand or really tricky, please come and see me. We can stay after school, we can work on a couple activities and get you better at matching. Because this is kind of hard, writing them from scratch. But it might be easier if you look at the activity to match the right expression to the right sentence. Okay. So now that we're done with the word part, we're going to look at some pictures. And so what I did for you here was I included a key, where these rectangles each represent x, or 1x, and these triangles represent 1. So what we can do is we can represent an expression in a picture like this. And it's pretty easy to figure out what the expression is. Since each of these represent 1x, we're going to count up how many x's we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 x's. Since these are both positive and they're 1s, I have 1, 2, or a positive plus 2. So this expression, this picture, is just representing 6x plus 2. What picture would match 3x plus 4? If you're already ahead of me, you might be drawing something like this, where you have 3 rectangles and 4 of these little triangles. 1, 2, 3 x's plus 1, 2, 3, 4. 3x plus 4. And if you look at this last one, we have 1x and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. So there's a couple ways we could write this. We could write this 1x plus 5 or x plus 5. Remember, lazy mathematicians, we don't need to write this 1 really, because 1 times x is the same as x. Just like 1 times 5 equals 5. So the 1 is not necessary. So you'll most likely see this. Like I said, if this is tricky or if this is hard to understand, please, please, please come and see me, because this can be some difficult stuff.